And as I told you, the idea is to see how we can leverage the emotions of all players in our creatives to make them perform better. And why it's important is because obviously we live in a super crowded international environment, and because we live in the attention economy, you know, that concept where the most difficult part when you're selling something, in our case games to our players, is to get their attention first, because there are constant toxicity between all the possible ledgers, personal messages, social networks, and other products ads. According to the last trustable studies on the topic, we are exposed to in average 2K ads per day, and it's actually a quite dated number. It's probably under-evaluated today, especially as the big platforms exponentially increase the ad frequency they are displaying. And even on those 2K ads, less than a dozen usually convert. So, not so much. And the power, that's where it becomes interesting to target emotions. The IPA, the Institute of Practitioners in Ads, actually made some researches on thousands of digital case studies and proved that, in average, emotional marketing campaigns tend to perform twice better than rational ones. So that's why it's so important, and that's why we should care about it. Now, this raises two questions. The first one is, what are the tools that we could potentially use to generate emotions among our users in our creatives? And the second one is, what are the emotions that we should target? Are there some emotions that convert better than the others? So we'll first answer the first question of the tools that we can use. We reviewed dozens of storytelling and digital marketing tools and campaigns and studies to shortlist the 5 most relevant tools that we see for hypercasual for you to generate emotions among your users. The first one relies on the shock advertising concept. It's basically a field of marketing with only one point, which is to shock your users. To do so, it's quite simple. All you have to do is to go against the norms, the socially admitted ideas, and the point, well, is to first attract their attentions, because that's the point of the shock, and then you will polarize your audiences. And polarizing, as we know, on social media is unfortunately and yet indisputably a very efficient way of creating reaction, creating engagement. The main difficulty with this one is that you shouldn't go too far. You should remain quite subtle. Because I don't know if you were aware of what happened to Fact to Fit, one of the Voodoo and another place productions release. The game was banned because of the App Store, because it was too grossophobic. So you want to remain careful with this one. Our second tool would be suspense and tension building. Here, the point is to make people care about what's going to happen next in your game by creating suspenseful moments. It's something that is actually done quite a lot in mobile gaming in general, apart from hypercasual. As you can see in this ad, for example, this is really a common practice, where you wonder if the king is going to survive, you wonder if that little army is going to survive or not. Tension building is as well a quite nice recipe, and that's definitely something we could do more in hypercasual. So this is Age of Origins, and yeah, there are plenty of different creatives on that side. It's just a few demos. Then comes the use of visual symbols. And here, what I mean is, well, we all know that colors, shapes, objects come with their meaning. But we need to go beyond the simple understandability purpose. Of course, red means danger, red spikes are dangerous, you shouldn't walk on them, but we need to go beyond to actually convey emotions. And this is actually something that Good Job did very well in Rush Hour 3D. As you can see with the lighting, I don't know if you can see it actually. The lighting from the car stops, the red and blue light that is reflecting on the car that you're driving, is actually super efficient to bring tension and excitement to the game. Because when the car is getting closer from you, you can see the reflection even better. So this is truly well done. Or point number 4 will be to target the memories. Here, we're talking relatability, basically. The point with relatability is to showcase to the users something that they already know. Because, and it works because it triggers a cognitive bias, which is called the mere exposure bias, which basically states that we are more likely to care and to relate and to react to things that we are a bit familiar with. And this familiarity will actually imply emotion. As you can see in this creative of Grandmaster, it's a scene that you probably already all experienced, whether it was as a child or as a parent, no, I don't want to go to school moments. So it was as well done from Super Samy. And our final tool will be to provoke the players, whether it's with super frustrating videos, whether it's with taunting taglines. As soon as you can trigger the player's ego, well, you've generated emotion. And what you're saying when with those kind of catchphrases, which are only one person of the players can actually achieve this, what you're doing is that you're challenging the player. You're telling him, well, we bet you can't succeed at that level. And since our games in Hypercasual are usually quite simple, well, it's a nice trigger to annoy the player just enough for them to download the game. Now that was only the answer to our first part about the tools that we can use to generate emotions. But the most interesting question is probably what are the emotions that we want to leverage and with what objective in mind? Well, they convert, are there some emotions that are better than others? And the good point is that some very smart people already answered that question, kind of. Especially, so this is the circumflex model of emotions. It's been invented by a famous psychologist, which is called James Russell. And basically, it's a mapping of emotion. On the x-axis, you go from negative/unpleasant emotions and to the positive ones. And on the y-axis, you go from deactivation to activation. Activation being, in our case, conversion, basically. And just to give you an example of how it works, for example, boredom is a quite medium pleasant emotion that has little to no chance to lead to conversion. On the opposite, if a creative is fun, well, it's generating positive emotion, obviously, and highly likely to convert. Now, this is only a theory framework, and what we want to do is to connect it to what we're doing, hypercasual games. So we reviewed hundreds of best creatives of hit games to shortlist the most interesting emotions we're going to discuss today. And it gives us this top 4 of positive emotions: curiosity, amusement, empowerment, and satisfaction. And this top 4 of negative ones: arousal, frustration, disgust, and unease. And now the rest of this presentation will be to give you examples, techniques to leverage those kind of emotions. And let's start with the positive one, and probably the most efficient one, which is curiosity. Good stories make us care about characters, situations, and that's exactly what we want you to do within your creatives. To make people care about what's going to happen next in your game. And to do so, you have 3 storytelling tools that you can use. The first one is teasing. The goal here is quite simple. You need to hook your viewers in the first seconds of the videos, because that's the most key moment in most of creatives. And to actually to succeed teasing, to successfully use teasing, you need 2 elements. The first one is a clear start situation where you understand what's going to happen. You can already start to anticipate what's going to happen just by looking at a few seconds of the creatives. The second one is a very short-term outcome. And merging games like Heroes Inc. are just perfect on this one. Because you understand that you have to merge 2 objects. In a few seconds of the video, it's already done. And you understand that it's going to create a new result. And just by looking at the ingredients, you can already start guessing what's going to happen. For example, if you merge some muscle creating stuff and metal, you will get some sort of metal Hulk. It makes sense, and you can actually project yourself in the creative before you even see it. So that's a very powerful tool to catch the user's attention. But once you have this attention, you want to keep it. And here, tension building is really important. Here, the point is to walk on the thin line of uncertainty. As Rory did in this nice video of the hero, where during the whole creative, you're wondering, is this small character going to survive or not? This is as well very clever and very interesting. And finally, you want to finish with a nice cliffhanger, where you basically showcase unfinished moments, unrealized situations. And that's what we did with the success in our best creative of Just Survive. If the players want to be satisfied, to know what's going to happen, they have no choice but to download the game. And as our game is freely accessible, just one click away, that's a very powerful lever to convert and to transform viewers in users. Just one small comment here. You want to be careful of when this cliffhanger arrives in the video. Because naturally, you could maybe put it at the end, at the second, third of your video. Users in average on social networks, they watch ads for 3-5 seconds. So don't keep it for the end of your creative, nobody will watch it. That was the first point. Then first positive emotion. Our second one, very powerful as well, is amusement. Basically here, the goal is to make our users laugh, or just maybe to exhale a bit of extra air out of their nose. And to do so, well, there are 6 main humor types that you can trigger. The first one is physical humor. It's everything which is related to, well, body effects, really surprisingly moving bodies, as in this try to fly creative, for example, ragdoll effect, facial expressions, everything that happens in that field. It's really the lowest and most accessible, most universal way of making someone laugh. You showcase something falling, someone falling, you laugh, it's instantaneous. Then there's absurd humor. The point here is just to showcase some sort of surprisingly illogical situations, like in this 911 dispatcher, emergency dispatcher creative, where basically a 911 agent is answering a client who wants to order a burger, and that's what happens in the creative. I don't know if you can read from the back of the end, but that's the story basically. Then you have topical humor. Here, the point is to make fun of current trends or events. And this one is actually quite tricky. There are 3 main things that we need to discuss on this one. The first one is that you need to pick carefully the event or the thing that you're making fun of. If you're getting satirical, you probably want to avoid the super sensitive political topics, first because they're mostly banned by the social networks, but also because it's probably not going to, like if you target the war in Ukraine right now, probably not going to make people laugh with it. Second part is the trend that you're targeting. Is it mainstream enough? Just because you see something in your TikTok feed doesn't mean that everyone is seeing it or that anyone actually cares about it. So you need to do a bit of research, maybe use Google Trend to see if it's rated or not, if it's useful, if it's successful or not across the world. Is it country-based or is it worldwide? Or main market in the hypercasual remains the US for now. So that's something that you want to investigate as well. And finally, these trends are by definition trend-based, meaning that they will fade away. For example, this one creative of Lost Life 3D, where surfing on the Will Smith laugh. Sure, it's interesting to do it, but at the same time, how long will it remain interesting? When it's a hot fact like this, so it can be very interesting to refresh your creatives or an already existing game, for example. If you have a hit game out there where you need to refresh your creatives to avoid atrophy, it can be very interesting, but we would advise you to maybe not bet on this one to launch a brand new game, or you need to be very fast at developing it. Then comes the dark humor, basically making fun of, well, dark, depressing situations, like in Forensic Master, for example, where you're using makeup on the corpse, basically. Then comes dirty humor, which is, well, as you can see there, everything in the name here. It's mainly betting on special kind of related topics. Still quite dangerous. This game, Sticky Flip 3D by Voodoo, was kicked out of the App Store at some point, and they needed to change the object, the jumping dildo basically, moving part of the fun of the game and hurting the marketability at the same time. And finally, you have the observational humor, which is the ability to make fun of the little things in life. Basically, for example, here, the cook of Games making fun about how dads usually don't know how to cook, mixing eggs, sausages, and ketchup in one plate. So these are the 6 most easily triggerable humor pillars that you can use in hyper-casual creatives. Now let's switch to our next emotion, which is empowerment. Here the promise is very simple. You need to allow your players to understand just by watching the creative that they will be able to do something in the game that they can't do in real life. And there are actually 2 main ways of doing so. The first one is just to challenge common rules and authorities. For example, to go against your super annoying boss in our best creative from Room Rage 3, where you destroy pretty much everything around that boss is telling you that you're fired. Worked very well. So going against hierarchy, basically. Or just common rules like driving once, like in this text and drive creative. The second way is more about, well, making childhood dreams real, like by granting superhuman abilities to your players. Whether it's in games like Force Master 3Ds, where you can, by a simple gesture of the hand, throw away all your enemies very, very casually, or like in our game Crowd Defense, where you can nuke a whole army of enemies going at you. It's satisfaction from empowerment, basically. And that leads us to our last positive emotion of the day, which is satisfaction. When the game just feels too good to watch, do not download it. And here we identify 3 main levers again. The first one is satisfaction from interactions with textures and colors. The best examples usually on this side are on the simulation game side. And the best example, again, is a Good Job game on this side with a jelly bag game, where whether it's the jelly texture or the painting, splashes, spreading, it's just amazingly juicy and very satisfying. But it doesn't have to be satisfaction simulation games oriented only. It can totally be used in other genres, like, for example, in this dark art game, where the juiciness of the liquid is just out of this world. And it's probably one of the best attempts to hyper-casualize the Splatoon here. Then you have satisfaction from organic and physics-based flows. Basically, you have this example of thousands of physics balls in balls and ropes, I think is the name of the game. Or in this Castle Red creative, where you can see that your crowd is behaving just like a fluid, and again brings that very relaxing, very mesmerizing kind of effect. And finally, you can have satisfaction from completion and achievements, just as it's satisfying to tick a box in your to-do at work. It should be satisfying to complete a level in-game when you feel that you accomplished something. And a Good Job game example, where with this Unloaded 3D, where indeed it's satisfying to see this. You can also decide to, as in Fill the Fridge, answer some OCD triggering situations by playing on the fact that it should be exactly aligned, exactly perfect. It's also a very interesting way of doing so. So that was it for the positive emotions. Now we are going to switch to the dark side with negative emotions. Here, just a small disclaimer before we move forward. We're depicting the reality of hyper-casual today. We're not telling you do this. It's just for you to be aware of what can be done. And anyway, you'll see that for each negative emotion, there are some risks as well. And probably one of the most risky ones I have to start with is arousal. Sex sells. Whatever drive the industry, it always did, and it can completely, it can decrease the CPI. It's a very efficient and proven technique to do so. But it's probably the most risky emotion you can leverage in a mobile game ads today for two reasons. The first one is that app stores, whether it's Apple or Google, just don't like it, and you might risk a ban. And the second one is that, well, ad networks don't like it either. So you're putting your game survival at risk, whether it's because your game might be stopped during its scaling phase, or because it might be just kicked out of the App Store without notice. So for that reason, at Ketchapp, we just don't exploit this emotion. Still, if you want to exploit it, we would at least recommend you to go for suggested contents more than explicit one. And that's what Erase It 3D did, for example, with this creative. I guess you enjoy it. Nothing wrong, right? Just a man casually showering with his dog. While on the opposite, explicit content might be this comic book creative. So, as you can see, a bit less subtle maybe. But still, for the game, I think for this one it allows to divide the CPI by 2. So this works. Just don't know how long, you don't know on which ad network. It's a risk that you might want to take. The last point, and I think that this creative illustrates it quite well, is that you want to be careful with offending content, especially when it comes to gender stereotypes. It's a quite sensitive topic right now, especially. Beyond the ethical question, hypercasual is all about reaching the biggest possible audience. And as soon as you're offending a part of your audience, you're reducing the potential profit of the game. So that's something you want to consider. Then let's move to our next emotion, which is frustration. It's one of the most common things that you can see on the market. It's heavily used. And as much as we want to avoid frustration in games, because it usually means users who churn, we want to use it in creatives. Here, what we want to do is basically the opposite of what we generate with satisfaction. We're creating anti-satisfaction, anti-dopamine, for example. And because we're showcasing super frustrating situations like this one in Oregon, which was at a point below 10 cents CPIs at the game's launch, it's just super annoying to see someone fail solving such an easy problem, right? And because it's so annoying, because we are keeping away some satisfaction from the users, they will want to compensate that. And the only way to do so is to download the game and to play it himself. What's powerful with this one is that it's also supported by cognitive bias, which is called the illusory superiority. Basically, this one states that, in average, we think that we are smarter than people around us. And when we see this kind of creatives, where someone is miserably failing at solving a super simple problem, well, it's a nice way to let the player reassure themselves, basically. To prove themselves by playing the game that, okay, they are indeed smarter than people in average because they can appreciate this. If the topics of little cross-promotion time, if the topic of cognitive bias interests you in Hypercasual, we have a dedicated video on how to leverage them to improve your games on the Hypercasual YouTube channel, so don't hesitate to take a look at it. Now, small disclaimer, if you want to eat after this meeting, that's maybe the moment where you want to leave the room, because what's going to happen next is quite disgusting, as we're going to check our last two emotions, unease and disgust, ranging from slightly uneasing creatives to truly disgusting and almost unwatchable ones. So you might want to close your eyes at some point. I will let you know once we get it. But yeah, basically here we're 100% in the short-advertising moments, basically. So you can start with slightly bizarre contents, just like in this merge animal 3D creative. Just a bit disturbing, starting softly. The bizarreness effect is another cognitive bias, which states that in general we are more attracted to things that stand out a bit because they feel weird, bizarre, slightly strange. So this works. Then you can do a bit more amazing by depicting quite bored situations, like in this game where you're headshotting pigs for some reasons. And careful, that's where it starts. You can embrace the purely disgusting types of creatives. I won't watch this one. I haven't watched it. So here, the emotion trigger is 100% disgust. And it's quite funny because at first you could think that these super negative emotions, they would be repulsive more than attracting people. But actually, the fascination power of disgusting / amazing content is real. And if you kept watching those videos, it's probably because you have this curiosity, kind of unhealthy one, to discover what is going to happen. This one is probably the hardest that you can do without being banned out of ad networks. Kind of culture video, right? Of course, the game has more than 100 million downloads. Shock advertising works. So that's it for our last negative emotions. Now, just as a conclusion, I want to maybe give you a last advice on everything I showed you is already done, is already leveraged on the market. What we want, as usual, with this kind of presentation is to try to go beyond. And a quite simple way to do so is to not limit yourself to one emotion per game, or to think a bit broader. And doing so, like one game doesn't mean one emotion. And for one game, in one creative, you can target different emotions. For example, this wood game is probably as really uneasy with this kind of blob with tentacles that looks a bit like venom than it is totally satisfying. So it's a good example on that side. Or you can merge disgust and curiosity, as in this one. So yeah, so you need to pull out teeth out of the mouth of for individual. If you want to know what happens, you need to download the game. So you can do it in one creative to leverage different emotions, and you can do it for one game across different creatives, orient a bit the creative on one specific emotion. And for example, this block hero creative is building on tension. So as you can see, our character is kind of running away from the crowds, which is just surviving at walking on a thin line of survival. And the same game and almost the same elements, but just with our character running in the direction of the enemies instead of trying to get out, it becomes, the main emotion becomes empowerment. So everything we showed you today is a sort of toolbox that you might want or not apply to your games, to your creatives. Think about it, as usual in Hypercasual, from the brainstorm and ideation phase, because your creatives in Hypercasual are almost your game, so that's something that you want to anticipate, to tell yourself once you, I don't know your pitching process, if some of you are studios or developing games, but to tick a box when you're creating, building your ideas, to say, okay, what kind of reactions am I expecting to generate among users by showcasing